Hello everyone. This is Ayhan. I am working as a senior product manager at Udemy. Today I will be talking about the power of communication in product management. And before I start, I want to emphasize what we will get after this webinar. The first thing that you will be living with is the understanding of product-driven communication. What I mean by that, you will be understanding the product perspective through communication. So when you communicate with any stakeholder, you will use this product-driven communication. And the second thing is inclusion of teams and your customers from idea to execution. Yes, we always work with the different stakeholders, different teams, developers, UX, but with this webinar, you will be able to understand when and how you should be connecting with your customers, with your teams, while delivering high-value products. And the third thing is the ways of alignment with internal teams. This depends on the scale of the product, but in any product team, there are lots of stakeholders that you need to keep in touch, and I will be sharing some of the ideas and ways so that you can align these internal teams. So in the agenda, I will be starting with the definition of product manager, and I will be moving on to the product cycle, and I will leave you with some communication tips. It's not just the direct definitions of the product manager or product cycle. This is something like the definitions from the communication perspective. So you will see the communication perspective of the definition of product manager and definition of product cycle. So let's start. In general terms, every presentation everywhere, you'll see some kind of definition like for product manager, like you are in the between with UX, tech, and business. But I believe when we look at from the communication perspective, it is not that simple. So the product management road, if you want to achieve and habit-forming product, it is not that easy. So there are lots of different roads. There are lots of different options. You need to go back and go forward. So just to finalize what you want to have, just to complete what you want to do, and you are in the center of it. And it is not just UX or it's not just engineers. There are lots of stakeholders that you want to deal with, that you need to deal with. While you deal with these all stakeholders, you need to also think what you want to do and focus on what you want to achieve. And while you are dealing with these kind of stakeholders, you need to be customer focused. So you need to only focus on the customers and create a value to your customers so that your product becomes successful. So as you see, it's a chaos, and in this chaos, you need to be the one that will be solving the problems and the one that will be easing the solution. So there are three phrases that will solve this chaos, and this will complete the definition of the product management from the communication perspective. The first thing is align. As a product manager, you are the one who should align every position, everything, every update, every change, every metric, every KPI on your product. So whatever you do, you need to align all the teams, all the stakeholders, your developers, your UX designer, even your customers, align on same thing and enable them to look the same thing. And the second thing is making it visible. So while you align people, you need to make these things, make the changes, make the updates, make the KPIs visible so that they will be communicating around this. They will be talking about the same thing. They will communicating through the same topic, same angle. So you will create a product lens so that you will be aligning everyone and so that you will be making it visible for everyone. And the most important thing for a product manager is the facilitation. Most of the time, product managers lead the team, but they are not the manager of anyone. But what you can do in this situation, you need to facilitate, because you are not the expert on support, you are not the expert on sales, you are not the expert on management. You just facilitate their process so that your product becomes successful. So whatever you do, you facilitate the processes of other stakeholders and make product processes work smoothly so that you can become successful. This is three things that will complete product manager. And when we look at the product cycle, there are three phases of product cycle. One is discovery, delivery, and measure. And in this discovery, you ideate through some measurements, some research. In delivery, use these ideas to implement these ideas and deliver some products to your customers. In measure phase, you measure what you have, the data, the qualitative analysis, so that you have new insights for your product. So this is a continuous cycle. It never ends. And in here, let's go one by one. In discovery, uh, there are different phases. So you look for the initiatives, you look for the areas to search for, you look for some markets to enter, you are trying to solve some problems. So this discovery covers all these kind of things. And there are some common mistakes around communication on this. The first common mistake is acting as proxy. What does it mean? When you are talking with, when you are interacting with stakeholders, you generally get the idea from your customer, from your stakeholder, and directly push it to the team without any interpretation, without any, let's say, asking question around this and making it more clear for your team and for everyone that you work with. So if you are working as proxy, so this is a common mistake, the objectives will not be clear. The road that you want to go is changed every time you lead any new item to your team. And the second thing is assumption instead of confirmation. Sometimes as product managers, we do, like, when we develop something, we could just say that we don't need to inform marketing around this. We don't need to inform, let's say, finance around this. But this is just an assumption. Instead, we need to just confirm this with the finance, with the marketing, with any department that we are working, so that we will be syncing and we will aligning these. Because if you assume at the end of when you release, let's say, you will be forgetting that part. When you in the early release phase, you will see you forgot the finance part, and finance has some problems with the changes that you have. So you may cause bigger problems if you just assume instead of confirm. So the third thing is driving based on single point of view. Sometimes as product managers, we feel like we are the one that will be ideating, we are the one that will be sharing the ideas and finding the innovative ideas and pushing through these ideas. But it's not that correct. It's not correct. You need to generate ideas as a team. You need to create something as a team. So it should not be a single point of view. It should not be only point of view that you shared. So this is also another common mistakes while you communicate with the stakeholders, with the team. And the fourth thing is trying to solve every problem at once. What does it mean by that? This means that, like, when you talk to different stakeholders, you will hear different problems. And each different problem you want to solve, you list all these problems and you try to find a way, find the product solution that will cover all these problems. But it is not possible. So you cannot make everyone happy with one solution. So you need to have some understanding of which one is the most important, which one is the driver of the other one, which one will be a blocker for other one. So you need to understand these kind of concepts, and you need to talk this to your stakeholders, to people that shares problems with you, to the customers that shares problem with you. So you need to evaluate, you need to combine these problems, you need to decide which is important to create some problems. Instead, when you just solve every problem at once, the solution will be messy, and when you share it, everyone will be confused. And the last thing in the discovery phase is lack of time bugs. What does it mean? It means that we will be planning lots of things, lots of discovery. We could do discovery for a year. We could do discovery for a 6 months. We could do discovery for a month. But if we know what amount of time that we have, then it could be easier. We should be time boxing that discovery and communicating this time box strategy and deciding what is important to discover first will enable us to understand the main important topic, crucial topics. Instead, if we just research everything that and communicate everything that we find, and it will not be it will be a problem that we dwell on and go in the detail and lost on the detail. And in the delivery phase, we have prioritization, we have design and development of the product, we have test of the end release, and we have also go-to-market strategies. These are the steps, these are the phases in the delivery that we will see. And there are some common mistakes on delivery too. The one is unclear objectives. If you are just define something as, let's say, in a high-level way and communicate it with that high-level way, when you start developing, when you start designing, there will be lots of open questions and you will not have the answer for these all open questions. And this will lead to inefficiency. And this will become problems when you communicate with the team, because they will be demotivated, they will not understand where they go, they will not understand why they are implementing such kind of things, why they are designing such kind of thing. And the second thing is focusing on the process instead of outcome. So I see this focus on process in a couple of product teams. The idea is mostly you are working as agile, you are working Scrum, let's say. You are focused on doing every process, every routine of Scrum, every process of Scrum. But when you do this, sometimes the process becomes goal instead of a tool. And when you communicate anything with the stakeholders, you just mention that you just try to make the process work, make the process go smooth, and make the reportings go smooth. But instead, you need to focus on the outcome. If you are not delivering the outcome that your customers wait, your company waits, then even if you go with the smooth process and with the perfect process, it will not be successful. So this is another mistake on the communication. So you say, in a process, we need to wait like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we need to first do this. But first you need to understand why they are requesting this. What is the importance of the thing in the outcome, so that you can take action. The third one is misaligned commitment and goals on timing. Sometimes you try to deliver these products and you decide on MVP, you don't align this MVP with your customers, you don't align with MVP with your stakeholders, and maybe you are seeing a risk on timing and you don't communicate this timing. Then when the time comes, your stakeholders prepare something, your customers expect something, and they planned according to the time that you shared in the first place, because you didn't align the new one. Then it also, let's say, create a communication chaos, and you need to try to solve a new and hard and complex problem instead of an easy problem. And last one is lack of communication around solution and updates. Whatever you change and the solution phase, whatever you do on the, let's say you try to do it in a one way and then you change it in another way. You need to communicate these changes with the stakeholders, even if you think that this is not necessary. If you share it with your stakeholders, then they will see if they have comments and feedbacks, they will share it with you, and you will be taking, let's say, cautionary actions beforehand. So you will have remediation actions before starting the development. Otherwise, you will be wasting some resources. In the measurement phase, there are some measurement of KPIs. You can research some customers. You can go have qualitative research using qualitative research tools like surveys, interviews, and you reflect what you delivered. And you check whether you delivered value is working or not. And there are common mistakes on there too, obviously. Misaligned KPIs. What I mean by that is you define some KPIs, but it is not obvious to everyone. You define something, it's too complex. You define something that will solve only specific case. And when you try to check these KPIs and you share some data to stakeholders after you release, it will not be, let's say, similar. It will not be aligned with your stakeholders' objectives. And when you look at from the product perspective, if your KPIs are wrong, then even if you fulfill these KPIs, this will be resulting in a bad shape. So this is a critical thing, to align KPIs beforehand and start any development, start anything, start any discovery around these KPIs that you want to go. And the second thing is unclear definition and lack of data sources. Sometimes we want to define, we want to measure everything, and we don't control whether we have that data source or not, or we don't control whether we could deliver this kind of things in a different specific time box. So we could get some data in 6 months, and this could be meaningful, but when you check it, it will not be meaningful because 6 months is too much time for that specific thing. Maybe you could just check one specific metric, like let's say you wanted to look for the conversion rate of a specific topic and specific part, and you can just check the overall conversion, maybe let's say, would be solving the problem. When you are dwelling on this specific part, it will take too much time, but if you check this one, you already observe what is changed and you will take action. If you do the second thing, it will be late for you to take an action. And the third thing is mislead expectations based on the results. Since you are defining some goals before starting any product work, product development, you define some expectations, you define some goals, and after you change to the MVP, after you change in the developments, you change some of the things. When you come to the measurement phase, you mislead. These are led to a different problem. Like your stakeholders, your customers expect something, your management expects something to be reached in specific level, but you already know that when with the change, it will not be go that far, but it will be go like in a, let's say, you need to limit the KPIs, limit the goals in some place, but you need to align these results beforehand again. And the last one is focusing on not actionable metrics. Most of the time, we try to define some metrics like active users. How many active users on there? But there are some problems with this kind of metrics. What does active mean? How do you define active? And do you feel like that any product work that you deliver will be aligned with this active definition? And you need to have a time box. Active users in a month, active users in a week. What is the time frame that you need to use? If you don't have this kind of things, your metrics, your KPIs will not be actionable. And if you cannot take an action, then there will be lots of confusion and questions around your stakeholders you need to solve. So defining KPIs, defining actionable metrics will solve your problem on communication. So it's not a communication problem, but it is a source of the communication problem. And before I complete, I want to leave you with some tips on communication. The first thing is enabling open communication and valuing every input and feedback. Sometimes we feel like they don't know the product, customers don't understand the product, maybe support don't know the specific part of that you are mentioning. Maybe they are not understanding, they are not using the product full 100%, but they have the feedback because there could be a reason that why they understand, why they don't use that specific part of the product. You need to enable these open communication channels between stakeholders, between customers, for any time reach feedback so that it will accumulate into something that will be used as an input to your discovery, to your delivery, and to your measurement phases. And the second thing is making sure every stakeholders have the knowledge of product goals and state you are in. What I mean by that, when you are aligning lots of things, you need to have a visible, you need to have a visual, or that stakeholders can check and see where you are at. Whether you change the product goals, whether you change the development, whether you change the timing, whether you change anything, whether you have some concerns around something, whether you have some problems. Maybe, let's say, you are solving a use case, and when you check with the sales, they will say, in sales, we solve this kind of problems in this workaround because they don't know that specific use case, and they try something else in the product, and you will use that information in your product, and this will solve your problems. And it's not related to sales. It's not related to any other department. It's just related to development, let's say, and you solve this through the help of sales, even if you think it is not necessary. Communicate early with the changes and updates. And you may feel like this could generate some overhead on communication, because communication is a burden sometimes, because you need to work, you need to put too much effort. But when you are trying to facilitate, you need to share every info. You need to make these transparent communication channels, so that this will, let's say, improve your process. Instead, this will not become an overhead anymore. So when you communicate early, you have the plans early, you have the remediation actions early. So when you share some info early, you will have these kind of things early. So, and the fourth thing is over communicate on every updates and every information. In here, what I mean by that is sometimes we don't feel like communicating specific things, because when we fail, when we think that we will be failing, or when we think that it is not necessary, we tend to not communicate around this. But having a communication channel, having this communication channel open, and over communicating in every updates, even if you feel like it's not necessary, just sharing a let's say message in Slack channel, or sending an email is not that hard. And maybe you could just use some dashboards, you could just use some documents that you put some info, but having a simple notification to your stakeholders to see you change something would bring lots of inputs, and you can use these inputs to your benefits. So as in product management, the main skill is to use the inputs into something that will be beneficial for your product goal. And the last tip that I will share is value the time you and your stakeholders spend on anything you do. Since I said that this could be an overhead, you need to be careful about the time that you spend. You need to be careful that you took the time of your stakeholders. While you communicate with your stakeholders, you can communicate through face to face. You can communicate through a Slack channel. You can communicate through email. You need to optimize this channel. You need to optimize any channel. It's not just once, like it's any communication channel that you use. You need to use it wisely. So you need to have some plans. You need to have some efficient approaches for these communication channels while you over communicate. So it's a hard problem to solve, but when you start communicating, it becomes easier, because everyone puts some input, and it is decided on the road. This is what we do in Udemy too. So we use these communication channels open, and we get lots of benefit from it while we apply these kind of things in the product. And finally, this is the end of my presentation. I just want to remind you that there are 3 phrases that makes product manager successful. You need to align on everything. You need to align on anything. You need to make every change, every action, every roadmap, anything that you want to share is visible. And you need to facilitate all the processes around you, so that everyone will do their best, everyone work as their best, and you will just get benefit from the environment that you have. I think that's all. You can reach me through the LinkedIn or through email for any question or any problem that you want to face. Thank you so much.